Welcome back, everybody, to another week of Sunday School here at the Lighthouse Church of the Nazarene in Moravia, Iowa, where we are going through the book of Isaiah. This week, we're in Isaiah chapter 21. Slowly but surely, we're getting through the book of Isaiah. Now, Isaiah was a prophet, which means that he was a spokesman for God. He talked for God, and a lot of Isaiah's ministry was predicting future events. Now, we know that God knows the beginning from the end, that God cannot lie, and so that a true prophet from God will always have 100% accuracy in their predictions, which Isaiah always does. Now, in Isaiah chapter 13 and 14, Isaiah foretold the fall of the city of Babylon, the empire of Babylon. And this week in chapter 21, guess what? He's going to return to that and foretell the fall of Babylon. Now, if we remember right, according to Herodotus, Babylon was a great empire. There was 56 miles of wall around the city, and these walls were 320 feet tall and 80 feet wide. They would actually have chariot races on top of the wall. Isaiah is going to be foretelling the downfall of that. Now, what's truly amazing about this is that Babylon, which Isaiah is prophesying the downfall of, isn't even the world empire yet. So 100 years before they are the world empire, Isaiah is telling us how it's going to fall. All right, so let's get out our Bibles. Let's follow along. We're in Isaiah chapter 21, verse 1, which says, the burden against the wilderness of the sea. The NIV and NLT will say desert by the sea. This is Babylon. This is referring to Babylon. Babylon, it wasn't exactly a desert. It had a great river running right through it, and it also had swamps and marshes. So the burden against the wilderness of the sea, this is Babylon. In the book of Psalms, it talks about the captives, and it says, by the rivers of Babylon, we sat down. As whirlwinds in the south pass through. Now let's talk about this real quick. Whirlwinds. In the Midwest, we call them dust devils or dirt devils. This is interesting. There's actually an old wives' tale that says the direction that the dirt devils are spinning can actually tell you the weather, and that if the dust devils are spinning counterclockwise, you're going to have rain within 24 hours, and if they're spinning clockwise, you're going to have dry weather. I don't know whether that's true or not. But whirlwinds in the Bible are a sign of God showing up or a sign of divine judgment from God. Think about it. Do you remember when we went through the book of Job? And when God finally answers Job, it's in Job chapter 38. Do you know how God answered Job? Out of a whirlwind. In the book of Ezekiel, when Ezekiel has his great vision of God, God showed up in a whirlwind and in a great cloud and in great fire. Now, Elijah, how did he go up to heaven? Most of us think he went up to heaven in a chariot of fire, but no, the Bible actually tells us that Elijah went up in a whirlwind. And in the book of Hosea, it's Hosea 8:7, Hosea says they have sown the wind and reaped a whirlwind. In other words, you reap what you sow. So this whirlwind showing up, that's divine judgment from God. So it comes from the desert, from a terrible land. A distressing vision is declared to me. The treacherous dealers deal treacherously, and the plunderer plunders. Go up, O Elam, besiege, O Medium, all its signs I have made to cease. Now, Elam and Media, who is that? These are the Medes and the Persians. Now, the Persians it means horsemen. Now, the interesting thing is the term Persia, it wasn't even used until the time of the captivity, 100 years later than this. So this just actually proves the authenticity that Isaiah wrote this way before it actually happened. Many people say about Isaiah and also the book of Daniel that, well, these were written later or were wrote later after it already happened because nobody could be 100% accurate like that. This proves that it was written before then. So verse 3, let's keep going here. Therefore, my loins are filled with pain. So Isaiah is having this vision right here. Therefore, my loins are filled with pain. Pangs have taken hold of me like the pangs of a woman in labor. I was distressed when I heard it. I was dismayed when I saw it. My heart wavered. Fearfulness frightened me. The night for which I longed for, he turned into fear for me. Let's talk about this real quick. Isaiah is getting sick just seeing the visions of what's going to happen. The same thing actually happened to Daniel. When Daniel sees what's going to happen at the end times, he says, my strength was taken away from me and I was physically ill. Isaiah is saying the same thing. Now think about this. If the prophets, Isaiah and Daniel, if they're getting ill just watching a vision of what's going to happen, imagine the people that are actually going to have to go through it. And here he said, it was like labor pains, sudden, sharp, unavoidable. The Apostle Paul talks about labor pains. It's in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. It talks about the end times. It says, when peace and safety are declared, then sudden destruction comes. So these labor pains, when it's talking about in the Bible, sudden, sharp, unavoidable is what it's talking about right there. And also notice this. Remember, this is talking about the downfall of Babylon. Please stay with me right here. It says, the night for which I longed for, he turned into fear for me. This is talking about in Daniel chapter 5. We have something referred to as Belshazzar's feast. Do you remember that? It was when they had this great drunken night of debauchery. And that's when the hand showed up on the wall and said, Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. And that very night, the Medes and the Persians came and overtook the Babylonians. That's what this is referring to right here. The night that they were looking forward to, the night that they did think was going to be a lot of fun, that very night, they were overtaken. Let's keep going here. Verse 5. Prepare the table, set a watchman in the tower. In Daniel chapter 5, the people should have been watching, but guess what? They thought they were untouchable, so they didn't worry about it. Eat and drink, arise, you princes, anoint the shield. Now that's saying there, anoint the shield. This would have been greasing of the shield so that spears would glance off of them. They would anoint the shield, with grease. So verse 6, for thus the Lord has said to me, go set a watchman, let him declare what he sees. Verse 7, and he saw a chariot with a pair of horsemen, a chariot of donkeys, and a chariot of camels. Now, this is interesting. The Persians, they were known for using donkeys and camels in the desert. In fact, Cyrus the Great, he was known for his camel cavalry. In fact, horses, it was said at this time, they actually feared the sight and the smell of camels. And that's one of the reasons that Cyrus liked to use camels. So right here, Isaiah foretold it exactly as it was going to happen. Verse 8, then he cried, a lion, my Lord. I stand continually on the watchtower in the daytime, and I have set at my post every night. Verse 9, and look, here comes a chariot of men with a pair of horsemen. Then he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the carved images of her gods he has broken to the ground. Oh, my threshing and grain of my floor, that which I have heard from the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have declared to you. It says Babylon is fallen, is fallen. We actually see this language later in the Bible in the book of Revelations when the final world empire, it's referred to as Mystery Babylon or Babylon the Great, when it falls, the final world empire, we see the same language. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. Now, it's always interesting. God can stir up one nation to punish another. God used the Assyrians to punish his people Israel. But then he allowed the Babylonians to overtake the Syrians. Then he's going to allow the Medes and the Persians to overtake the Chaldeans, or the Babylonians is referred to. And then the Greeks are going to overtake them. Then the Romans are going to overtake them. Then the Huns, then the Turks. And it just keeps going on and on, does it not? One thing we can focus on right here, the fall of Babylon. Babylon thought they were untouchable. They lived in absolute power and wealth, that they thought nothing could ever stop them. But they had no idea that they were about to be conquered at that time. The Bible tells us pride goes before destruction. If we, as the United States, ever think that we're untouchable, that nobody can touch us, it's complacency and pride that'll allow it the downfall. Remember Ronald Reagan, what did he say? He said, if we ever forget that we are one nation under God, we will be one nation brought under. Another interesting thing to think about, the fall of Babylon, which was just foretold right here. Babylon fell while it was under the rule of a man named Belshazzar. Now, Belshazzar was the grandson of the great king Nebuchadnezzar. So there was Nebuchadnezzar, then a man named Nabonidus, and then Belshazzar. So Belshazzar was the grandson. He would have been the third one in the line. Have you ever heard the phrase shirt tail to shirt tail in 3 generations? Usually it means that there's the family patriarch, the one that suffers and builds it all up. But then the second one, he saw all the stuff that his father went through, and he knows how hard it was. But by the time you get to the 3rd generation, They just know comfort and ease. And guess what? It all gets lost under that. They say that the rich man builds his son a castle, but forgets to build a son for it. The poor man builds up his son, but has no castle to give him. Belshazzar was the third generation. He was probably soft because he'd been raised up in a life of comfort and ease. Let's keep going here. Verse 11, the burden against Edom, or the burden against Duma. One person I was reading here was saying that the burden of all these things, all these sayings right here, is actually the burden of the expositor, the one trying to explain it. Some of these prophecies are very vague, and it's really hard to grasp what Isaiah was trying to say about it. So we just do our best. Verse 11, the burden against Duma. Duma, these were the Edomites. They were the descendants of Esau, who was Jacob's brother. Remember, Esau was the hairy one in the Bible. The Herods at the time of Jesus, they were Edomites. The burden against Duma. He calls me out of Seir. Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The watchman said, the morning comes, and also the night. If you will inquire, return and come back. I think what he is likely most likely referring to here is the long night of the Assyrian oppression is almost over, but Babylonian oppression is going to follow that. It says the morning comes and also the night. Remember, the Bible tells us weeping may come for the night, but joy comes with the morning. All our problems, they're all temporary in this life. But then he tells them this. He says, inquire, return and come back. It's saying, inquire, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Turn from your sin. Repent. That was the message of Jesus. Come to him. He's always knocking at the door, ready and waiting for us. So then we have this proclamation against Arabia in verse 13. The burden against Arabia. In the forest in Arabia you will lodge, O you traveling companions of Dedanites. Now, who are the Dedans, the Dedanites? There's actually two Dedans in the Bible. One's in Genesis chapter 10, a grandson of Noah, and another one is in Genesis chapter 25, a son of Abraham and Keturah. I don't know which ones these would be referring to here, but those are the Dedanites. O inhabitants in the land of Tema, bring water to him who is thirsty. With their bread they met him who fled, for they fled from the swords, from the drawn sword, from the bent bow, and from the distress of war. Verse 16, for thus the Lord has said to me, within a year, according to the year of a hired man, all the glory of Kedar will fall. Now, this is a true prophet from God. What's he willing to do? He's willing to timestamp his prophecy. He's saying, hey guys, within a year, this will happen. Now, just this past week, there were people proclaiming to be prophets of God saying, God has told me the rapture is going to come this week. Guess what? It didn't happen. True prophets from God, look what he did. He timestamped and said, within a year this is going to happen, and it happened. Verse 17, and the remainder of the number of archers, the mighty men of the people of Kedar, will be diminished, for the Lord God has spoken it. These are hard things to get through. They're hard things to understand. What do we need to take away from this? Well, here is our main takeaway that we can take away from this. This Bible is true. Every word of it. The things that Isaiah predicted will happen, the things that Isaiah predicted would happen, guess what? They did happen. And that's why we can stake our life upon this Bible. There's 2,500 prophecies in this Bible. Over 2,000 of them have been fulfilled. We're still waiting for some future ones. So the Bible is true, and we can stake our life on it. We aren't Christians just because we tried it once, and yeah, I kind of liked it. We aren't Christians just because somebody raised us up to be Christians. We're Christians because if you investigate it, if you look at all the evidence, the Bible is true. Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and it's by faith in his name alone that we can be found righteous before God and spend eternity with him. That is the main takeaway that we can take away from all these tough prophecies that we're trying to work our way through here. So, that's Isaiah chapter 21. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you took something away from it, and I'll see you the same time, same place next week. Bye.